So this is what we call the felucas. I was trying to find the source.
Hello. Here's the foot. Now, when Muhammad went to school, they taught him the foot was this consonant B, which has no meaning. That's not how Hakim looked at the glyphs. He understood this to be the knee to the bottom of the foot, and it meant reliability, and was pronounced bay. The Greeks came along, made it beta, B, no meaning. It had a meaning, reliability. What does this mean? Well, water, reliability. The priest was known as the man who knows water, or the one who works with water. Now understand, this was major occupation. Water was a key understanding of these people, so you'd have a hydraulic engineer, somebody who drills the trenches, somebody's a dowser, would find the water, many, many different things. So the Ascot priest was very important, the one who knows water. Why is this the bay here? Because you can rely on the one who knows water. That's how we read the glyphs. Not consonants A, B, C, D, Jack and Jill went up the hill to get a glass of water. I brought a group here in the 2000s. There was a man named JP who was married to a Mexican lady named Myra. She was of Mayan blood. I was back in that same chamber just before talking about Satet. She kind of grabbed and said, Stephen, come here, I have to show you something. What? She said, this is a Mayan headdress.
Sure,
this is not native Commission.
Yep.
It's Quetzal feathers. It looks like, here's the priest, he's having himself disguised as a Mayan. So maybe there was a contact. And we know the other one goes back at least 3,300 years. So this is some more evidence we believe that there was contact between the Mayans and the Cometians. And when I sent this the thing that I spoke about and showed to Hunbat's men, he said it was clear in their tradition, so with Del Alejandro, that the Mayans had come here and the Cometians had come there. So we've heard rumors for years of Cometian glyphs on Mayan temples. I've yet to see a picture of them, but there supposedly are Cometian glyphs somewhere in Mayan temples that's yet to be found. But we know that they were here.
That's okay, I like Mayan Indian. It's fun. In the museum there were small pieces, small samples of this, and they had the door hinges.
But there is a red thing that shapes star. Right. That means this was the ceiling of a temple.
Because it's supposed to be nude.
Do you realize how perfect it is, Marco?
Yes. You're going to get here.
Where's the ceiling from granite? All destroyed.
And then open quiet, as he said. But there's
Also, look at
So we're at Elephantine Island, actually in Aswan, right next to the Nile River. That is a super ancient artifact that is pre-dynastic, as in before the pharaohs. That's lost ancient high technology, and unfortunately what happened was either the dynastic people or the later cultures, the Greeks, the Romans, possibly the Christians or even the Islamic people, moved these pieces here or found them here in a state of disarray, and they broke them into pieces to make smaller objects. So that's why we're missing a lot of the examples of lost ancient technology in Egypt. But you can see this is a broken one, and this is clearly also an example of machining technology beyond the capacity of the Bronze Age dynastic people of Egypt.
And this was another one. This one here. This one was another one just like the rose granite one. What I see here, that it was being quarried not to make millstones. Because making millstones like that other example over there where you see the circle and the square, that was to carve a millstone out of it. Here it looks like they were taking parts of it to use it in another building in another era. We see here all the red color.
Yeah.
So this part of the scene was going to be carved, and this part of the box was going to be used as part of the wall, like the one we saw in the other temple on the other side. So when they wanted to cut it, after they painted it, it broke apart. It didn't break the way they wanted to.
Right.
So they just left it.
So what age would you say the glyphs are that are painted on?
I will say Greco-Roman.
Greek-Roman.
Yes, it looks like from the Greco-Roman era.
Egyptian workers. Because they still have this deep in their memories. How it used to be.
Also this.
Even in the 200 years ago or more, the French or foreign anthropologists used to come and hire Egyptian workers to do the job. And then you will get the credit.
This is an excellent example, as chronicled by Chris Dunn in his book, Ancient Technologies, of a machined surface. Yusuf Awian.
These are not markings of any kind of hammers and chisels.
No
you can
way.
see that it's been
No
beaten.
way. Look at these lines. Look at these
Same
striations.
Exactly.
Look at these striations.
And also the higher parts and the lower parts shows that it was not
Exactly.
all cut at once.
Exactly.
It was like
Especially here. This.
here and here.
Exactly.
Yeah, here and there.
Exactly. You can see where the blade came back.
But the fact that it's arched
Yes.
makes us wonder what kind of tool was used.
See all the striations?
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful pattern. You see the striations running this way, and you see the definitive pattern
I can see it and I can't get it in my camera.
going this way.
We've got
Oh, here it is.
So it's an arc.
So you see this
It
is
arcs like that,
This
curved,
featured in Chris Dunn's latest book.
and the cutter most likely moved in this
Has to be
direction.
machined. Cannot be done by hand.
Hopefully this is not the only example here, but this is an incredible example. And here especially, you see where the tool was cutting higher than here, which is also repeated here. The saw marks, more than a millimeter apart. And here is where the saw stopped and the stone broke off. So since it has a curve to it, it's possible it was a circular saw. And that gives you an idea of the width, or thickness that is, of the saw blade itself. You're not talking slaves with strong arm labor. You're possibly talking lost ancient technology. This is another good candidate at Abu Sir of lost ancient technology. Again, this is basalt, and it does look like some kind of saw was at work cutting into the stone. Basalt is very hard, and so the saw that would be required to cut it would have to be harder, or at least the teeth would have to be harder than the basalt stone itself. You can actually see, if you look really closely, the pattern, the cutting pattern, I think, through here. But Abu Sir is a site which has been decimated. And somewhere we have Yusuf Awian, who has now disappeared.
Well, he wants you to go down there.
Okay. Well, Stephen, would you like to talk about these two very interesting rose granite boxes that we see?
Well, this is obviously would be the main residence chamber, and that's why it's down. Around what the water would be around it. Whether these have been moved or in original position, I think they're in original position. And obviously one has been vandalized. No inscriptions anywhere, so it's 5th dynasty. There should be inscriptions on it. So it shows it's older, pre-dynastic. This is a very ancient site. Abu Sir has many, many temples and structures from the ancient times.
And it's just one more example of the fact that the finest craftsmanship predates the less sophisticated craftsmanship, exactly what we see in Peru as well. It's counter to the more common belief that civilizations start from primitive and then advance to complex. But what we're seeing here, and again the same as we see in Peru, is that the most recent work is more primitive than the earlier work. The building materials of the later cultures tend to be inferior to the earlier cultures. The size of the blocks or other materials tend to be smaller in the later cultures than the earlier cultures. And the later cultures have a tendency to use mortar or cement or some other kind of adhesive. The earlier cultures don't. Here we find, I think, definite evidence of core drilling. And this is, as far as I know, black granite. Very hard material. And you can see the parallel grooves inside the hole. You see the grooves heading off in that direction, like this. That, I think, is pretty clear evidence of a drill at work. Core drill, it would be a hollow. And of course in modern times we have this, but how would the Egyptians have had this thousands of years ago? It could not be made out of copper with copper teeth because this is granite. It's very hard stone. And even if you had diamond dust in between the teeth, the diamond dust would get pushed out of the way very quickly, and you would wind up with the copper in contact with the stone, which would last about 5 seconds before it would get dull. Now this is a beautiful example of core drilling, and most likely ancient core drilling. You see that? You can see the grooves where the drill was moving, the lines running this way, because the drill was of course plowing through that way. We know it's a core drill because you can see that that it's a tube. The walls of the tube, or the wall of the tube, is only a few millimeters wide or thick. And then right next to it we have another really good example here. So this is at Abu Sir, and so far we found many examples of this. It's unlikely that this is modern. It could be modern, but it's unlikely, because why would somebody be taking core samples out of this? This is at Abu Ghurab, near Cairo in Egypt, and these very intriguing bowl-shaped things made out of crystal. They have knobs on them, as you can see, and the number of knobs on each one of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them is different. This looks kind of machine-like. Just visually, it looks like almost like these were turned on a lathe because of the quality of the workmanship. But of course, fine measurements would have to be required in order to establish that. But it's each one is very smooth, beautiful curve here. Difficult to do, but not impossible to do by hand. But what's more intriguing are each one has a hole in it, like that. And if you notice the hole, the hole, at least visually, looks very round.